All right, so rejoining the Trollskull Six, picking up in Lion's Arch. Everyone coming downstairs with Birdie dressed in a lavender top hat and tails. Brina stocked up on javelins and other ammunition in her efficient quiver. Is there anything else you guys would like to do before you follow Toria Quickstep back to the Black Citadel? Okay.
Yeah. Toria, could you give us a minute? I need to talk to them.
Very well.
I'll
wait outside.
All right, thanks.
She takes her leave.
I listen to make sure she's actually walking downstairs. She's not eavesdropping.
No, she steps outside, like onto the street.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just a couple of things before we go to the Black Citadel. One, make sure you speak up when you're talking to people and look them in the eye. Also, try not to piss anybody off. They'll just probably punch you in the face and start a fight. And the guards aren't going to jump in to stop that. So, you know.
Love that.
Yeah, well, public fisticuffs is a, traditional charr method of conflict resolution.
Yeah, I spent some time in the Citadel, and if you're small, they do have a tough time grabbing you. I'll say it. You can get out of a tight squeeze if you need to. They got big hands there, but they hurt. They do.
Also, no magic in the Citadel.
Oh.
That's important.
Technically, yes.
Yeah.
Technically.
Charr don't like magic, especially fire magic.
Oh shit,
Also,
Alexa.
a lot of flammable shit. So,
Okay.
What about like magic items? Is that chill?
I mean, it's okay if you're carrying them. Just like don't go stabbing people with like a magic sword. That
Just kind of I try not to most of the time. I slip up every now and then, but I mean,
it'll probably be fine.
Maybe keep the horn tooting to a minimum.
yeah, that is a good point. I'll be conscious of this going forward.
And show respect to like authority figures, especially Smodur.
Smodur?
Yeah, Smodur the Unflinching. He's the Imperator, kind of like the king.
Unflinching. What a good name. Has anybody ever tried to make him flinch? Like, I'm just curious. Like,
they're all dead.
Oh wow.
Yeah, people do it.
Wow. Yeah.
Shit.
Imperator. Unflinching. That's a high bar to set for yourself. The
Guess.
Like bird flies too close to you, you flinch. It's like, oh well, there's the title. He's gone.
Have to take all of the embroidery off of the things you have when you remove the title. That is rough, man. Let's see. Brina will wear her cool Halvar's black cloak in an attempt to look presentable.
Okay.
Oh, also, Kitri, you should pack a lot of rations. Because it's just meat. And more meat.
Noted.
Yeah.
I will say that there are non-meat objects in the Citadel. It's just very heavily meat. It's not solely, but very, very heavy, like 90% meat diet.
Their vegetables look like meat.
All right. Any questions? We good?
Should be fine.
This is gonna go great.
This is going to be great.
Yeah, scale of 1 to 10. How do we get out of jail?
Don't go in the first place.
Yeah. Don't. Yeah.
All right.
Alexa, if you end up in jail, I wouldn't worry about it. We'll figure something out, I'm sure.
I know you would never leave me behind, Birdie.
Okay. So as you guys make your way outside,
Yep.
Toria is standing in the street, sort of arms crossed, tapping a foot, claws kind of clacking on the
Mm.
cobblestone street. Let's see. She turns around and sees you guys descending the stairs. She just says, "All right. We'll head to the Citadel and I'll take you directly to the Imperator's core. They'll be waiting for us. If there's anything else you need to do, let me know before we get to the gate."
I gotta pick up some equipment at the blacksmith.
Is it close?
Yeah, it's right there.
All right. Let's go.
Yeah, I'll run in and pick up my stuff from Avia.
What's this person's name again?
Toria. Toria.
Toria.
Alright. She starts leading you through the city. Familiar routes now, well known to you. Every now and then, like it's a light drizzle of rain, but you guys are alright in your traveling clothes. You see a couple of people from time to time in the streets who recognize you, folks you've seen around, and they kind of wave and nod, look a little not concerned but curious as this heavily armored female charr in sort of it's like steel armor, but there are lots of bladed, sort of serrated spines poking out from the shoulders and the gauntlets and the greaves, and some of the steel itself, like it's not a shining silvery steel like you'd think of like a medieval knight. This is very much like a like black, crusty, almost like it looks more like iron than steel. But the portions of it that are kind of polished and trim are dyed like a deep crimson red. And right on the chest and the square of the center of the chest is the sigil of the Blood Legion. Seeing you guys in the company of an actual legionnaire, you get a couple of side glances, curious gawkers, but you make your way to the Sora Gate hub without issue.
I'm gonna give everybody their potion holster and the dagger made out of the frostworm fang.
Okay. Yeah, as you guys are kind of walking down the street, Kala starts handing out these things after the blacksmith stop, and it's just like a over the shoulder, kind of under the arm holder for a potion bottle, so you can have one or two, you know, just kind of in view where people can see and get to them.
Oh wow, this is great, Kala. I like the brown of it.
It's so
Ah.
if somebody goes down, we always know where the potion is. You can
Right.
just put it on when you think we're gonna fight.
Right. Yeah, I'll be sure to do that.
I go, wait, let me change before we have combat.
Right.
I need 1 minute to cast a spell. Can you just wait?
Yeah, I'll put this in my bag. But I'm gonna use it for the future.
Uh-huh.
I want you to know that. Thank you. I appreciate this.
And you also get each of you a dagger. It's got like a really nicely carved wooden handle, but affixed to that handle is a serrated frostworm tooth that was collected from the one that you killed.
We each get one of those?
Mm-hmm.
What's
Kala.
what's
It's
the
just
functional
a-
name of that?
Just a
It's just
dagger. I don't have a magic item for it because it's non-magical.
Okay, gotcha. It's just a dagger.
Really badass looking.
Badass dagger. Gotcha. Oh no, this is nice, Kala. This is a good one.
Yeah, just something to remember the fight by, because that was crazy.
Yeah. Mhm,
Well,
it
this
was.
kicks
That was a
ass.
little insane.
I saw this tooth, I think, at some point. Up close, yeah.
I don't think I saw any teeth. I just
No,
saw
it's
a
really
lot of nothing.
dark. Yeah,
Mm.
very dark and cold.
Hmm,
Okay.
minor regret. Anyway,
Yeah, got cool stuff. Brynja's getting a great sword. All worth it.
So you guys make your way to the Asura Gate hub. And as you approach, there are two large, well-armed members of the Adamant Guard. They just have the sigil of the Iron Legion on their armor. It's very similar in style, but less covered by jagged, serrated points and blades, and more solid, functional steel. Again, though, not highly polished. More of a, it's not rusted. It's got like a sort of blackish tinge to it, and this is a more like a blackish blue metal to it. This is not dyed red. These two charr, can't really tell at a glance if they're male or female. They're very bulky, and they're both wearing metal like basket style helms that come down over their faces and obscure most of their vision. Sort of vertical lines are cut across it to allow them to see, but otherwise they are almost completely covered in this plate armor. And as you approach, Toria just puts out a hand towards them and makes a quick salute across her chest. They snap to, salute, and allow you guys to pass through at no charge. You can see there's a little sort of sitting off to the side, just sort of like crossed arms, kind of huffing, clearly not pleased about this, but you pass through the gate, the familiar kind of tingly, dizzying sensation, and you step out into a completely different world. It is no longer raining. It's a bit chilly. There's still a bit of winter left in this season, but you are at a similarly low altitude to what Lion's Arch would be. You're a little further north, but you are not high in the Shipper Peaks. You emerge on the other side of this gate, and you see a short ramp that extends down onto an iron gantry that appears to be suspended about 100 feet above the ground, that you can see through the gaps in the gantry beneath your feet.
Real quick.
Yeah.
What's a gantry?
If you think of like an industrial setting, it's like a grate that forms the floor instead of a solid floor. That's like suspended overhead, like in a factory or something. And as you look around, you see the Black Citadel. I think if I click this, you guys will see the prompt. So that should have brought up a journal entry for you. A little picture of what you're seeing. There are construction all around you of iron and steel. Almost every building in this city has a sort of curved chimney with dark plumes of black smoke and bits of flame gouting from it. The Iron Legion banners hang all over the city from buttresses and flanged edges of buildings with dangling globes of light and heavy chains. Everywhere you look, just behind the steel and iron facades are the flicker of burning flame, and you can smell the scent of burning metal and wood. There's a constant drone of hammers beating wood, beating iron. The typical sounds of many voices speaking, large crowds, the pull of horse carts. Every now and then you hear the heavy shift of iron doors as they open and close. There appear to be several people on this gantry with you that are kind of moving backwards and forwards towards the gate and away. The gantry itself leads forward about 60 feet. It kind of curves slowly down to meet the level of the city. And as you look out around you, you're suspended over almost like a canyon that kind of runs along the edge of town. And where this gantry reconnects to the ground is sort of like the upper level of the city known as the Black Citadel. Its high fortress walls surrounding it on all sides. Looking out over the country that you can see now being so elevated, you see a wide land of rolling hills. The grass, a sort of pale green, almost a yellowish brown tinge to it, but very pastoral. In the distance, you can see like clumps of small herds of sheep or cattle being led around in paddocks. Turning back to the city, you kind of see that there are high platforms and big, wide ramparts that lead down into lower sections of the city. Everything seems to be kind of gathered around a central upper level that sort of looks down over the rest. And sitting square in the middle of this elevated center is an enormous sphere of hard black iron that is the Imperator's core. It's kind of like the Death Star, but it's not as polished and technological. It's like junkyard scrap that has been riveted in plates to form this huge sphere. Part of the sphere opens up like a giant iris, and within is this, you can kind of see it on the handout here, this smaller sphere within that's all connected to everything by scaffolding and piping, and there's a constant steam and smoke that just kind of hangs heavily over all the city and kind of centers around this massive central spherical core. Toria wastes no time and quickly sets off in front of you at a brisk pace. You pass along a flat area that skirts just under the curvature of this core, and you can see off to your left, which would be north, there are a series of huge 15, 20 feet high statues of charr warriors in various battle poses, some of them with longbows drawn, some with heavy great axes or great swords, some carrying on their shoulder what look like enormous hollow tree trunks of steel. It's a very odd sort of look, but there's just a series of these, and Kala, you know none of them. Birdie, having been here, you've heard some of the stories. These are famous charr heroes. Pyre Fierceshot, who was one of the first to oppose the Flame Legion back in the day. The first really to question their following of the Titans, the flame gods that the Flame Legion had kind of used to subjugate the rest of the legions. Another statue, and it kind of catches your attention, Birdie, this time as you pass it, is a hero known as Kala Scorchrazor. Yeah, odd now. At first you didn't think about it when you originally came through here, but now you have a party member that shares that name, and it strikes you that this is the famous charr female who secretly trained and led a rebellion of Flame Legion females against the Flame Legion, causing the split.
Can you repeat her name?
Kala Scorchrazor.
Scorchrazor.
They don't like what this wasn't like recent though, right?
No, it's been a while. Yeah.
In a while.
Yeah, been a while.
I think it's been decades.
Okay,
See,
okay.
I don't know if I have this on my timeline or not.
Yeah. I'll be like, oh, Kala, that's you know that one, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I told you guys the story about Scorchrazor.
This would have been like
Oh,
200 years ago.
I wasn't listening.
Yeah,
Uh,
that tracks.
Oh, wait, that's Scorchrazor right there.
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one. She's
Oh, impressive.
Like a statue, her raising one fist in command, her mouth open in a wide snarl, massive like saber cat fangs.
yeah, here, Kala, do the pose. Do the pose, Kala.
I'm not gonna do that.
Oh, lame. Lame.
Toria leads you across this sort of avenue of heroic statues. Kind of the road bends around to the right as you're circling the core. Eventually, yeah.
While we're walking, can I ask her?
So how did you end up on this assignment to fetch us?
I only know what I was told. I go where I'm ordered. I'm Blood Legion, and the Quick Warband reports to Tribune Brimstone. He gave us the instructions, and I obeyed them. She kind of looks at you quizzically, like, how else would it be?
No, I just didn't know if, it was like getting latrine duty or cub minding duty, because
On the contrary, my warband is well respected. Bringing people to the Imperator in person is a great honor.
yeah, they're really being on their best behavior right now. So,
Good.
yeah.
Speaking about best behavior, if I may, could either of you tell us anything about the Imperator? Like, I confess I do not know much about charr culture. I do not know much about the man who leads the charr.
She stops briefly and sort of like, she doesn't quite snap to attention, but she straightens herself out, and it's almost like she's reciting from a lesson. And she just says, "The Imperator is the commanding officer at the Citadel. He is the head of the Iron Legion in its totality. He governs the 3 tribunes, or Iron, Ash, and Blood, and they in turn govern the rest of their people. Ultimately, at this Citadel, Smodur is the highest authority. Each of the legions has their own citadel elsewhere in the world, but here, Smodur's command is absolute." You're muted.
And how long has Smodur been the Imperator? Is it been for a very long time now?
I don't know. As long as I've been here.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
And she's Blood Legion, right? Okay, I got that wrong last session.
Is he like elected, or is he like appointed, or is he just?
No. Imperators are direct descendants of the Khan Ur, our great chieftain. He killed his replacement and took his place when he was too weak to continue. That is our way.
Okay, that makes sense. Is that like a formal, do you all have like a formal ceremony type thing for that event, or is it?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I wasn't here for the Ascension, so I'm not sure.
Sure. Interesting.
Is that all?
Yes, sorry to keep you back to being on our way. My apologies.
All right. Better to
This
get
is
it
a
out
player
now.
question again. Damn. His name is Smodur the Unflinching, and he's technically like the commander of the Iron Legion.
Yes, he is the head of the Iron Legion.
Okay, head of the Iron Legion, and then it was like something of the Citadel.
Well, he's commander of the Citadel. Like he is the
Okay,
highest
okay.
authority in the Citadel.
All right, I was just trying to write down all his titles.
Him the big boy.
Him the big dude. But not the big bad evil
Alright.
guy.
No, as far as you know.
Unless we want him to be.
So, Toria continues leading you around, and you guys are drawing a couple of glances now. Every now and then you pass a group of charr that are sitting there talking, and almost all of them are in armor. Some in like heavy plate, some in just breastplates or
Are they
chain
wearing
shirts.
pants?
You see that some of them do. Some of them do have cloth or leather breeches that sort of go down. All of them have sort of holes cut out for tails to protrude, because each of the charr do have tails. And as you kind of look around, and Birdie probably could point this out as well as Kala, you notice that the males tend to be a bit broader of shoulder, and their tails tend to be very leonine, like lion tails. They're sort of thin fur down to a sort of fluffy end, whereas female charr tend to have tails. Gosh, how would you describe? Almost like like anteater tails, kind of. What were we
The
gonna say?
designer said it was supposed to be like Clydesdale fur dangling off their tail. Like what's
Kinda,
on the hooves.
So it's as long as a lion's tail, and it swishes the same way, but the fur is longer all the way from the base of the tail to the tip. There's no plume on the end. It's just a long, kind
Sorta
of
like
longer hair.
Cocker Spaniel or something.
Yeah, kind of like that. So that is one way to potentially tell a female from a male in full armor. Some of them do have cloth or leather breeches that run all the way down to the ankle. Most of them do not wear boots, although you can see that they have adopted a style of almost like a gladiator Roman sandal that covers the softer underside of their paws but leaves room for their toes to flex and their claws to dig into the ground. There are, however, many who just wear long tunics that sort of have adjustments made for their tails that sort of come down to about the knee, and they don't appear to wear like breeches or hose or anything like that. Those wearing heavy armor do have like plates riveted to their thighs and their shins and things like that. Some of the others, you see a couple of people walking around that wear the charr analog for like heavy robes that sort of just hang down all the way to their ankles. They're sort of closed in the front and stuff, but all of them do have some sort of like patch or adjustment on the back end that sort of covers the top of their tail that allows it to poke out from underneath and have freedom of movement. You are led, as you make your way kind of south around the eastern side of the Imperator's core, you come to a point where at the edge of this pretty wide thoroughfare, I mean the base of this around the core is like probably 60 or 80 feet wide, and it's just a constant crush of charr, and you can see like a lot of Norn kind of walking around. Not many humans, no Sylvari, and just the odd occasional Asura. You almost hear them before you see them as they talk. But this is like probably 85 to 90% charr, maybe 10% Norn, and everything else is like 1% or less. Very, very homogeneous grouping. You can hear as you're kind of walking around off to your left. Once these statues kind of break off and there are no more of those, there is a high metal railing that prevents people from falling off. There's a sheer drop. And you can see from your vantage point the roofs of several buildings of this lower sector, and there is a lot of steam and smoke, and you hear like the banging of hammers, and it sounds like this is the sort of sector of the city where a lot of the crafting is done. Birdie, like I said, you've been here, so you know that this is like the crafting district, but it's not like the charr have artisans, but most of what is here is manufacturing arms and armor for the legions, or building components for structures in the Citadel and its upkeep and maintenance and things like that. The charr here don't really have residences so much as they have barracks. Toria just keeps a quick pace, and eventually you guys are led through this crush of people around to the east-facing side of the Imperator's core. As you enter, there is a wide, circular, open area where dozens of charr have kind of gathered off in little groups to the side, and several are, kind of walking back and forth. Those in cloth and robes are carrying what look like message bags or scroll cases. And you can see now, as you kind of come into the center of it, there is a gigantic hollow shaft about 40 feet wide that seems to rise up, and as you kind of pass underneath, it's like standing underneath the Eiffel Tower. It just goes up and up about 120 feet until at the very top you can see what looks like a platform suspended over the center with a slight gap around it. And there is a wide spiraling metal gantry that hugs the outer wall of this cylindrical area. Toria begins to lead you up the ramp, and periodically, like every 15 feet or so, vertically as you ascend, the spiral kind of levels out on a different floor of the core, until eventually you make your way all the way to the top. And here again, as you kind of move through this space, you see an array of charr, some in heavy armor, some with big serrated spines, some with just plain, like solid hunking metal, some in leathers that kind of drape over their faces and hang off the sides, leaving just enough room for their eyes. But on all of these charr, whether they're wearing full metal helmets or leather caps or cloth hoods, there is always places made for tails, and also there are horns. You see there's a staggering variety of horn colors and shapes and sizes. Some have been filed down, some have like brass rings and other ornamentation, and there's all manner. Some are big, thick, spiraling like ram's horns. Some are kind of side, poking out to the side and moving forward like a bull or like an ox. Some indeed grow out from the front to sort of form almost like a mustache shape, like a ox would be. And there's more variety beyond that. But you can see there are several hundred charr gathered in these places. Eventually you reach almost to the highest level, and Toria turns around and stops you and says, "All right, we're about to enter the command core. From here on out, I appreciate you've been on your best behavior, but this is where it gets real. Please don't embarrass me." And she looks at you, Kala, as she says this.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, and kind of look at everybody else.
She lets out like a little sigh, and you can see like she is visibly nervous. She turns and leads you off the ramp and onto like a wider sort of oblong, oval-shaped tunnel. It's only about 10 feet high, but it's about 20 feet wide, and the edges curve. She leads you up a ramp that extends. You can see once you reach the top, you're kind of on this balcony that overlooks the eastern side of this core, looking down over the Black Citadel. You can see to your left a lower section near the crafting district, but a little further east. And Birdie, you recognize that this is where the barracks quarters are for the different legions, as well as deep in the interior, kind of hidden away from the world in its most protected place, the Farar, the area where charr young are housed and trained from a young age. Down the center from where you can see is a long path that descends at a gradual slope all the way to the eastern gate of the city, and that exits out into charr territory. And then just to the left of that is several tiers sharply sort of descended from one another, where a impressive and terrifying array of siege engines and massive weaponry are arrayed in sort of parade ground presentation. And Birdie, you know this is where the Flame Legion armor, the Iron Legion siege engines, the armory, and supply depot stuff are located. She turns and takes you away from this impressive vista. Curling back on itself, the path you're on continues to rise into this highest level of the Citadel. And there's a massive circular iron door. It looks kind of like a giant cog wheel. And as she approaches it, there are two members of the Adamant Guard standing there with what look like, they look very similar to your Iron Legion pistol, but they're probably 3.5 to 4 feet long, and they are maybe 6 inches around. These very, very large firearms. And they both sort of eye her quizzically and give you all a look over, and they turn to each other and they say something in a strange language that only Kala, I believe, would pick up.
I also think I speak that.
You speak charr?
Yeah, so I have it written as orc, and I believe we said that we were going to list that as charr.
Yep. So you guys both hear this one charr says to the other, "Well, you don't see that very often, do you? Bringing meat directly to the Imperator." And the other one just kind of chuckles. Toria just approaches and ignores them and says, "I am here to see the Imperator. On the orders of Tribune Brimstone." And they immediately go silent, look at each other and nod, and bang on the door with their hands. Sort of 3 loud clangs sound, and then there's this grinding as the cogwheel is moved aside. It kind of rolls off to the right. inside, you are now looking at like the sort of center of a vast sort of glass dome that looks out to the western side of the Citadel, overlooking the canyon that you had stood over when you first arrived. Between you and that glass wall, there is the massive central cylinder that descends through the core, and suspended in the center of that is what looks like you've seen things like this before, like a war room. There's a massive table with a couple of maps and different markers on it, and like little like chess pieces kind of scattered about. There are several chairs all around it, and this suspended platform is now, it's also covered in its own little dome of iron rods and glass panes. You can see off to your left and right there are side chambers that are also little spherical glass domed areas, and there are charr within them. You can see through the glass there are people sitting behind these massive steel desks, a couple of bookshelves behind each of them, papers scattered everywhere, and you see one of them standing, kind of pointing his finger and shouting at someone. It's kind of hard to hear, but there's this muffled sound you can make out as the sound of shouting. That's off to your left. Off to your right, you see in a similar situation there is a kind of slim female charr in black leathers, no mask or hood, but like around her eyes, her fur patterning is this dark black, like a cheetah, that kind of runs down in a similar kind of black tear pattern down the sides of her nose. She stands over her desk, hands down, and is having a very quiet, very intense conversation with someone who's standing directly in front of her, also in sort of dark leather, just nodding. Standing in the war room is a massive charr male. It looks a little older, kind of burnt umber, sort of dark orangish red fur, but a thick kind of white goatee of fur that kind of collects under his chin and is tied together in a small gathered tail. He bears several wicked scars kind of scattered across his face, and his two horns go up from the sides of his forehead in straight angles back, almost like a, not really like an antelope, but they're pretty thick, like 3-4 inches around, and they taper gradually to sharp points, almost like a devil depiction might be, just kind of going backwards. He is in heavy blue-black plate mail or plate armor that bears the insignia of the Iron Legion, and standing next to him, you have all seen before, Tribune Rytlock Brimstone of the Blood Legion. His armor, a sort of blackish gray, very darkly stained armor, with bits of red cloth that kind of hang down in places. His side pauldrons over his shoulders in the shape of charr skulls made of steel, the fangs kind of hanging down over the outside of his shoulder. Also kind of a ruddy brown fur, but with a bright red mohawk-like mane that runs down from his forehead back down to his back. Toria approaches and then stops before stepping out onto the little walkway that leads to this suspended room, and just stands at attention. You can see that there's a conversation happening inside, and eventually Rytlock turns and makes a motion. And Toria turns back to you all and says, "Follow me." She makes her way in, opens the door. You are shown into the war room. Toria, once the last of you enters, kind of holds the door open and just says, "Tribune, I've brought them per your command. Imperator." And Rytlock turns and crosses his arms, kind of looks at the Imperator for a moment, and looks at the rest of you and says, "This is them, the Trollskull Six. I fought beside them. I vouch for them. I'm telling you, my plan will work. The Imperator looks over at you and says, "Well, I can't say I'm impressed at the first viewing. You know I don't like having mice in my citadel, Rytlock. Still, I trust your judgment. Get in here and have a seat, all of you." He just sort of gestures to some chairs on your side of the table.
Go sit down.
I also sit down.
Sit down in a huff.
I do that thing where he sits like crisscross applesauce on like the chair, though. You know, like.
Absolutely.
I'll just sit down if we're being invited to. Yeah.
Skeletor will lag behind just a second because he's looking around trying to take it all in, and then he will realize that everyone else has sat down, and then try and hurriedly get to it.
Does Rytlock ever make eye contact with me?
As you guys are starting to be seated, he turns towards Toria and just says, "That'll be all. Report back to your Legion here." And she snaps a crisp salute across her chest and hurries out. Scurries would be probably an appropriate descriptor. As you all pull your seats up, yes, Rytlock does look at each of you in turn. Okay.
I was gonna say
Karina's on
something,
her
but I'm not
best
gonna do it.
behavior.
I've rethought that.
Do it.
Now,
Do it.
even for a charr, it's easy to read that he is not in a great mood.
Yeah. Birdie's got that 20 passive insight. I feel like he'd pick up on that.
Karina's on her best behavior because she doesn't want to disappoint Kala.
So Rytlock at this point, after looking at each of you and kind of taking your measure, turns back to the Imperator and says, "I told you. They're the right ones for the job. I'll have to take them out and brief them. But you know how important this is." There's this moment where they just kind of stare at each other, and you can almost feel like you stumbled across like two alpha gorillas who just met in the woods, and they're just like having this silent sort of contest of wills. Until finally you see the Imperator give just a little bit. Physically, he just sort of settles into himself, puts one hand, or to put both hands on the table and kind of leans his weight forward. "Very well. I am Smodur, the Imperator of the Iron Legion. Welcome to my citadel. As your bard is well aware, the ghosts of Ascalon are always a threat. But something has really been agitating lately. We've seen an increase in violent apparitions centering around the ruins of Ashford Abbey. The abbey itself is mostly harmless. The ghosts who gather there tend to be the most quiet and confused. Sometimes they ignore the living altogether. But the abbey was the main entrance to the Great Ascalonian Catacombs, a network of old tunnels and burial chambers that run all the way from the ruins of Ascalon City to the abbey. The heart of the faux fire. And kind of looks at each of you to see if you understand the significance of that.
Do we understand the significance?
He turns to the Tribune and raises an eyebrow, and Rytlock just kind of like, "Almost 300 years ago, when we finally captured our homeland from these invasive mice, no offense, their last king enacted a terrible ritual that killed the remaining citizens and cursed them to live as vengeful spirits, denying us the ability to properly settle the area. We call this event the Faux Fire." And the Imperator just sort of looks at him, gives him a nod, looks back to each of you. "So, if something is drawing the more violent spirits in that direction, well, it can't be good. We need to enter the catacombs determine what's causing all the commotion, and end it. Fortunately for you, Tribune Brimstone has a plan. At which point he sort of steps aside and Rytlock takes his place, sort of crosses his arms. You never really kill one of the ghosts. You just disperse their energy for a while, and eventually it reforms, because the foe fire keeps it from crossing into the mists. So, ghosts have long memories. I've been fighting these ghosts most of my life, so they know me, and they hate me. And he kind of like has this little grin that reveals some of his longer fangs. I'll use that hate, and with a company of my best fighters, we'll raise enough hell to draw them away from the Abbey. We can't keep it up forever, probably a few hours at most. But that should be enough. I need you lot to get in there and stop whatever's stirring up the ghosts. If you find any treasure while you're down there, it's yours. But be extremely cautious. In the days of the last war, King Adalburn and his people built deadly traps down there to protect the legacy of Ascalon that was. Few charr who ever dared to enter these catacombs have ever returned. He looks at Birdie and then he looks at Kala and he lingers, making eye contact with you, Kala. And he says, we've tasked Special Ash Legion Warband to scout things ahead for you. We'll rendezvous with them at the Ashford Forum, just before we start making noise. We'll debrief them, and then we'll go from there. Assuming, of course, you're willing. And he gives you like a sudden probing look, like expecting one of you to start some shit.
Ollie just nods.
Yeah. Fought the ghosts once. I'm ready to fight them again.
You fought the ghosts?
Yeah, it was
Sorry,
a while
later,
back.
later. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I don't mind. We
Oh, okay.
had, yes, Mr. Tribune and I dealt with a ghost or two, I believe, when I was here. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That
Interesting.
we did. Your board helped me put down the ghost of Duke Baradin in one of the cliffs just outside of Smokestead. And he looks at the Imperator.
Aware.
Yeah.
Well aware with the tail of Duke Barrison. That's very impressive, Bertie.
Yeah, indeed.
Smodur gives you a hard look, Birdie.
Hmm.
And then he looks at Brimstone and just like raises an eyebrow. You mean that one?
Hi.
Rytlock says, yeah. Gave him one of our pistols as a way of saying thank you. He's not bad in a scrap. And the Imperator just kind of looks a little disbelieving. Well, if you say so. Get moving. We don't have a lot of time. There's a moment of tension between them, and then Smodur says, you know Desert Grave doesn't like to lend her people to our cause. Best make sure they all return, or she'll have your hide. And Brimstone just kind of snorts. Well, she's welcome to try and claim it. Come on, we're leaving. And he just starts to head out.
Yeah, I get up. Follow him out.
Okay.
I will
I
say.
kind of wait and make sure they go first. And we'll like
Hold the door.
push if I
I
need
will
to.
say, left on the seat of Birdie's chair as he leaves is a single business card.
Okay.
Smooth.
Alright.
Oh, hey Ryan, just as a player question, is it like agreed upon the whole faux fire thing? Or is this like something that's told differently between like say the charr and the humans who I know don't necessarily get along over what happened in Ascalon? So is there like a differing account of histories, I guess I'm asking, between
Oh,
the
not
two
really.
cultures? Okay.
Yeah, you would know, you and Birdie both would be very familiar, because where Divinity's Reach hosts now the survivors of Ascalon and their descendants, and Birdie is Ascalonian by birth, very familiar with the stories of his people.
Sure.
Yeah, so when the humans first came to Ascalon, they pushed out the Charr, who had recently conquered all of that land. They established Ascalon as a kingdom and ruled it for, hundreds of years, until the Charr leads the scattered legions united. 4 of the most powerful legions kind of pulled the others into themselves, and they formed the Charr High Legions, led by Flame, under the command of a sort of theocratic shaman caste. And they took back like half the territory. And it took them, I think, a couple of 100 years, but the people of Ascalon built the Great Northern Wall to keep the Charr out. And it all sort of came to a head about 300 years ago, give or take, with an event called the Searing, where the Flame Legion used terrible, like hell-born magic to destroy big swaths of the Northern Wall and most of Ascalon. It just kind of turned it into a burning wasteland. There was a bit of drama among the people of Ascalon about whether to go and seek safety elsewhere or to stay, kind of split them up into 2 different camps. The people who stayed behind put up a valiant fight for a couple of decades, eventually establishing Ebonhawk as the last sort of bastion of completely free Ascalonian citizens. But King Adalbern was stubborn, kind of pig-headed, and he refused to leave Ascalon City, which was the capital, on the Northern Wall itself. And when the Charr finally broke through in a final push and captured that city, completely sacked it. Nobody quite understands how, but he, rather than let the people be taken and the city be captured, did some sort of terrible ritual, and it swept outward in ghostly blue fire and engulfed the entire city and several dozen miles of land beyond, killing any survivors and turning them all into crazed, vengeful spirits to fight the Charr forever. And now it's kind of understood that the Charr have spent the last couple of 100 years settling the area, but the area around the city and the Northern Wall has always been plagued by ever-returning ghosts. And it's sort of it's a thorn in the Legion's side, but they've kind of learned to deal with it.
Okay. And was Adalbern Rurik's father?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the last king of Ascalon. And
And
there's
where did Birdie grow up then?
You don't know.
And he was an orphan just in Lion's Arch?
Yeah, I mean, I was in Lion's Arch. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Players be confused because I feel like I didn't take enough notes previously that I'm like, what?
Players be lying.
This is a part of history that humans know well, but not everybody else knows. And even if you knew, like, it happened 300 years ago. It's kind of like, a European has heard about the United States Civil War, but, like, they don't really get it necessarily. They know it was, like, Charr and humans, but a big bad thing happened. That's about it. Okay. So, you guys, you follow Rytlock, and we'll say, like, as you guys descend the core and you're kind of talking to each other, like, he's not really speaking, but he's not necessarily indicating that you can't talk or anything. He's just leading at a quick pace, like he knows where he's going. We'll say you guys have a little conversation about the faux fire and the history of Ascalon, so that everyone's up to speed as to what's going on. Rytlock leads you out of the Imperator's core. He takes you over in the direction of the armory, and you can see that there are several of these large siege engines. Think of, like, gosh, what looks like this? It's sort of a cross between like a massive, like those military trucks with like 6 wheels and like the canvas back, like in every military movie ever. Like an enormous truck, like almost the size of a semi. Not maybe quite so long. I don't know the term for them. But it's like a cross between that and a tank. You know, they've got big tank-like steel treads on rolling axles that kind of move them forward, but they're tall, and the front of them is a massive steel plate fashioned in the head of a snarling charr, and behind that, like in the mouth, you can see like the flickering flames of the boiler and the engine and stuff that's powering it. Rytlock takes you down to several of these. There are 3 of them that have been kind of set aside. You see that there are a variety of smaller vehicles, like the size of horse-drawn wagons that have large metal wheels with like big studs or spikes in them that kind of claw into the ground as it would move forward. There are an array of like sledges and things that are hooked up to like oxen for drawing and things like that. But there's also probably 60 charr in spiny, jagged, cruel-looking armor, all dyed red. And as you guys are now a little closer to these Blood Legion warriors, you can see that not all of the metal itself has been like treated and dyed. Some of it's just dried blood. And it's almost like they have dyed their blood or dyed their armor by sort of dipping it in the blood of the fallen, or by rolling it in their prey or something. You're not quite sure. It's a pretty gruesome spectacle. But Rytlock leads you over to this sort of mustering ground, and finally turns to you and says, "All right, this is our ride. We'll be taking several of the war bands under my command, heading out towards Ashford Forum. If you have to use the bathroom, do it now." And he turns around and walks into one of these large waiting siege engines.
I follow him.
All right, so who's got holy water, any kind of radiant, this or that? Anything?
I have 2 holy water.
That's good. That's good.
Have
Do I
one.
recall from our fights with them what like if they have any vulnerabilities or immunities?
From fighting ghosts,
Yeah.
you know that they're very hard to deal damage to. They have some pretty significant resistance. Make an intelligence check.
That I can do.
Look up the stat block.
Intelligence. It's a pretty good stat of mine, if I do say so myself.
Hey.
Yeah. I got a 16.
Yeah, I mean, you know that they're mostly ethereal and not physical.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. They don't particularly have anything that they're vulnerable to. But like you can't grab them, and hold them. And non-magic damage does very little to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would relay that to the group. All right, make sure you use magic stuff on them. Bring a bit, regular swords aren't going to cut it.
But we could have been here in 2 weeks.
Oh, that would have
Yeah.
been good, yeah.
And I'm not sure if
sword.
I guess holy water is good. They're technically they're undead, so would make sense.
How long do they stay dispersed for? We won't need to worry about them like coming back together while we're there in a few hours. Or anything.
Nah, no, they're slow.
Yeah, it takes some time. You do see, as you guys are kind of shuffling into this troop transport, a couple of charr walking around with what look like large backpacks with metallic cylinders on their back, like tanks on their back. Almost look like almost like ale kegs, but they're made of steel. They've got a series of hoses that are connected to what kind of resemble Iron Legion pistols, and they are kind of holding onto them tightly. And you can see that at the tips of these pistols, there is a little metal hook with a burning flame on the end.
Is there any way we could get one of those?
No,
One of those? They seem
they're
fun.
not gonna give you one of those.
I mean, Birdie, I kind of am one of those.
I
That's
mean,
a fair
you can
point,
do that,
yeah.
but I can't. I'm saying if it'd be fun if I could do that.
I think you'd set yourself on fire.
I do wear quite a few tassels.
Yeah.
As you're kind of walking around, Rytlock, or looking at these soldiers and talking about them, Rytlock kind of snickers a little bit and says, "I will give the Iron Legion some credit where credit is due. Their engineers come up with some pretty interesting toys." And then he points across the mustering grounds to a sort of column of charr in the rear. And these guys, like, very similar to one of the statues you saw earlier. They have these massive iron cylinders braced on an arm. Like, some of them just have an arm kind of curled around them, and they're stumping to and fro. You can see as they walk, these things are pretty heavy. They're about 5 feet long and maybe a foot wide. He says, "Now those are fun. They make the big noise.
Right.
We got plenty of kit. Plenty enough to make a distraction. Just what we need."
Do you have any explosives that we could take, like any lying around that we could take with us, perhaps? Might be useful down in the catacombs for, quick escape. Have to block something in, cut something off.
You know how to use one of those things?
I couldn't possibly carry one of the. I'm talking much more compact. Something from my pocket, perhaps.
His brows furrow and he kind of leans down, his hunch back, arching in the air as he gets closer to your level, and he just says, "Did you lose the gun I gave you?"
Oh, I still got the gun. He pulls it out and like does the Western flip, kind of puts it back in. It's like under his tail, so it's hard to see. Yeah.
Good. That's firepower right there.
Yeah. Kind of.
Yeah.
If you want to buy some munitions from the Legion, I could convince some of the merchants to sell to you. But you better be quick.
This is like an ancient ruin we're going in, right? I don't know if exploding things in there is a good idea.
She makes a
could-
good
You
point.
know,
Could
something
be
to
though.
consider.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations for things that we might need, Brimstone? Anything that would prove useful, perhaps, in our preparations?
A light source. It's pretty dark down there.
Oh,
Other than
good,
that, I don't
good
know what
idea.
you're looking into.
Oh, okay, good call.
Hopefully, the Ash Legion scouting party will have more information for us.
Sure.
Good stuff.
Yeah, sounds good.
He walks over to just behind one of his seats. He grabs a little handle on the side and turns at your and he lifts out like a panel that pushes outward. He kind of hangs out the upper half of his body and just says, "Move out!" And you hear this shuddering rumble as the siege engines begin to shudder and move forward, creaking and groaning across the plates that cover the ground in this area. And you guys start making your way out. For the sake of brevity, you are taken with Rytlock and his warbands quickly across the rolling plains of the region called Ashford, once the idyllic agricultural center of Ascalon that was. You pass dozens of old ruins where hamlets and farmsteads, even stone forts, and occasionally an old temple once stood. Now, these are merely the crumbled bones of a once proud kingdom. Behind you, as you lean out the sides to kind of take a view of the country, the harsh clatter of steel armor, shields, and weaponry starkly contrasts to the quiet stillness of this landscape. and the roar of the charr siege engines echoes across these wide pastures like the bellow of some mighty ancient beast. This was pretty early in the morning, and it's well after sundown before you reach it's an Iron Legion fort, but it just looks like a mess of steely iron towers, kind of like if you imagine like a ruined industrial factory, but smoke belching up from the high towers, and it seems to be kind of grafted onto the stony sides of a steep hill. Currently, you are kind of on the southern edge of a wide plain. The towers that kind of overlook the walls, and even, you see a couple of them kind of sticking up from the center of the fort. They are all made of this sort of dark metal, and have these wicked spines and razor sharp flanges from the base to the top. Rytlock at this point leans out, and with a single nod of his head, he signals a nearby soldier to sound a war horn. And you watch as just before you, in the wall of this fortress, a heavy iron portcullis is raised to allow you guys through this thick stone and metal fortress wall. As you disembark inside, you see clusters of more kind of stone and iron buildings, illuminated each within by the flicker of firelight. Each of them has a sort of central hole through which thick black smoke is billowing constantly, and the sound of ringing hammers, growling charr, and roaring engines fill the air, mingling with the clang of your feet against the riveted metal plates that cover the ground beneath you. As the last of you steps out into the cool night air, Rytlock says, "Welcome to Ghostwatch Garrison. Warbands stop here to replenish supplies while on patrol, or to train during their downtime. Barracks over there, mess hall over there, and the pit is just on the other side of that smithy there."
We're going to need a bit of clarification, I think. The pit?
The pit, yes. If you feel the itch to kill something, go there. Fight whatever's available, but understand, charr don't play around. If you step in the pit, it's kill or be killed.
My goodness.
Is there any reward for killing things, or do you just do it for the training and the experience?
More for the fun.
Sure, fun.
Technically
yeah.
against the
Some
treaty,
people.
but we used to kill Ebonhawk separatists, or even renegade charr there.
Oh, well, that's nice that you're not doing that now.
Well, if they attack one of our warbands openly and aren't killed outright, we still bring them here for a bit of fun.
Sure.
Yeah,
For
you
the
don't
most
have
part,
any.
though, it's whatever we find. Devourers, stone elementals, river drakes, giant spiders, whatever.
Oh, that's a long list. Okay.
These lands are dangerous. Lots
Yeah.
of fun toys.
Sure.
You don't have any separatists here right now, right? Just because of the treaty, you haven't had any open conflict or anything lately.
I don't know. I haven't been here in a while myself. Centurion! And he shouts out. You see this one charr suddenly like snap to attention and start hoofing it over to you guys. We got any separatist scum in the pit? No, sir. Not for the last month or so, at least. Well, it's a shame. Any other questions? He turns back to the Centurion. Where's the scouting party? We need to debrief them quickly. And this person just, again, sort of tenses. Tribune Brimstone, sir. The killers are in the medical tent. Oh, that way. I was just about to send a message to the Citadel. They're torn up pretty bad. They came in about an hour ago. And Rytlock turns to the rest of you and says, "Burn me. You lot stock up. We're heading out soon. Centurion, see to it my soldiers are armed and ready. Yes, sir, Tribune. And the Centurion just kind of runs away.
Do we see anywhere that seems like maybe we could buy more holy water?
Looking around here, there is nothing that looks even remotely spiritual.
Cool. Do we know how to make holy water? I don't know. Is it just something like boil the hell out of it?
Make a intelligence check.
Oh, okay.
Right, if we had a cleric right now.
Right. Intelligence check. One. Me and my +1 intelligence. Oh god. That's a 6. No clue.
Yeah, you imagine there's some sort of process to it, but you'd have to probably find someone who worked in a temple or some sort of spiritual person to answer that question.
So guys, do we have a plan maybe? I think we only have 3 things of holy water.
We got holy water. We also got a lot of magic weapons, which is also does the trick against ghosts.
Yeah, we should be fine.
Yeah, everybody's got a magic weapon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hold up my hand.
Brina, do you have? I could make your weapon magical, Brina.
How
If we
do
needed to.
you do that?
I couldn't do it for very long. It would be a limited period, and it would require me to concentrate on it. But I could make that happen.
Brina, I have also a glitter sword if you want that.
Wow, jealous.
Yep, it's I don't know.
Magic.
Does magic count as
I've got this long sword if you need it. It's magic.
Oh, it's true. It's a
Might take
+1.
you up on that if you're
okay.
not using it.
So you don't want the glitter blade?
I'll pull out the
No.
long sword.
I will take the good long sword though if you're not using it for the time being.
No, I shouldn't need it.
Okay,
I'll hand her the long sword.
thanks.
The shadow touched.
Shadow touch, yeah. So I guess it gets a little darker when I draw that sword.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, what light was provided by a bit of torches nearby kind of fades out. You can still, like, as you move around, when Kala stands between you and a source of flame, like, you can see her outline clearly. But the area around her is sort of draped in shadow, like a cloud had passed over just that area.
And is that like a magical darkness the dark vision doesn't see through?
No, it's just a normal
Okay,
lessening of the light.
gotcha.
All right.
So now we
This
have
is
emo
ominous.
Kala. Is that what's going on?
Well, she's handed it to Brina.
Oh, good. We've emo Brina. After she
Hmm.
lost her brother, now she's going to be growling about it. For
Look at my cool black cloak to match my cool shadow sword.
Oh yeah, if you blow your horn thing, do you think wolves would just show up to kill all the ghosts for us?
Yeah, I
Who
wonder
goes
how
about it?
if
What's
you
that work?
blow. Yeah, if you blow it in the catacombs, I wonder if there will be like wolves that just like run down in there. You know, that'd be pretty wild.
You can
Yeah,
give
or
it
do you
a
think it's
try.
like location specific? Like you already have to be near the wolves?
What if you get just like one? It's like the one that happened
Just
to be
one
nearby.
wolf.
Get like the runt of the litter.
So he's just lost, and he was like, "Okay, I'll be here."
You just
Yeah.
get the meat pack of wolves that shows up.
The meat pack of wolves.
Yellow corn.
Yellow cord.
What is Rytlock doing?
Like, what the fuck
Wow.
is wrong with these kids?
Rytlock has begun to walk away from you guys towards the medical tent.
I'm
yeah,
gonna,
they said
with the
I'm gonna
scout
follow
party.
him to the med tent.
Did they
Yeah.
say the sentries had been horribly injured, badly injured?
Pretty roughed up, they said, yeah.
Okay.
told her I'm going to go to the pit.
Cool.
Go to the pit.
Yeah.
Can't stay away.
All right, so who's following Rytlock and who's going to the pit?
I'm following Rytlock.
Yeah.
Everybody else is going to the pit.
Is there a third option?
Yeah.
We're
where
always
do
Is
you wanna
there
go?
another door?
Could I just find a place? I don't know. Is there? Can you mute?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, because his microphone picks me up, even though I have my own. Him and his fancy microphone Ryan gave him. Come on now. Is there a place to just like I don't know, is there any place that's like more of like a garden or like a bunch of benches, or is this all just like industrial like?
It's pretty harsh, very Spartan. Not a lot of public seating around these
Cool.
parts.
I guess I'm gonna go with, I'll just tag behind Kala, like hesitatingly, like do the little like pause and then like the scurry run of like shit, gotta catch up, and then just like be right behind her.
Yeah, I'll
Rytlock
also
is just
probably
like
go with.
stalking off. Yeah, Rytlock is headed out and Kala's behind him. So Keisha's
Yeah, I'll
following
follow
him,
Kala
Bernie.
as well. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll follow Kala.
Galatar.
Well, if I see Alexa going, I would probably go after Alexa, trying to get her to follow Kala. But also because he is partly curious of what is in that direction. But he's also just trying to get her to follow along so they don't get in trouble.
I will yell at them as I'm following Rytlock. Don't do anything stupid.
No, we'd be right there. We're just I'm 1 second.
Absolutely not, Kala.
They're
You
gonna
can't
know
see
it was
your
you.
grin.
So
Whatever
at
you
this-
do.
At this time of night, Alexa and Galatar, it just takes a couple of minutes of walking to get over to where the pit is located. And you see that it's a wooden palisade wall that's kind of tightly clustered around a small fighting pit. It's got an entry on one side and cages on the other, and there are high, sort of crudely manufactured bleachers that kind of sit around the top for people to sit and spectate. Currently, there is no active fight going on. You can kind of hear some snarls from the cages nearby, but there's no one actively doing anything in that area.
No way to tell what's in the cage.
You want to go over and take a look? I mean, you have to get pretty close because it's sort of, the cages themselves are covered over the top by stands for people to sit on and look
Okay.
down. But you
No, I'm
could.
not that curious.
I don't know. He did say something about the river drake. Never seen one of those before.
I mean, if you want to get closer, we can go look and take a peek.
I mean, could do that real quick.
We are already here, I guess.
I mean,
Okay.
it's, very close by. It wouldn't hurt to know what could potentially be a future option.
Yeah. All right. So you guys start. You got to kind of like descend a couple of gantry ramps that go down to this sort of lower area of the fortifications here. And as you reach the bottom, you kind of cut around to the edge of the palisade where the cages are clearly visible, and there are two charr standing guard there. One of them sees you guys coming, and just says, "It's a female charr from the look of her." "Hold there. Who are you, and what are you doing here?"
We were here with Tribune Rytlock. He's checking on some of the scouts.
Their
We
ears
just
like
got curious about
perk up.
the pits. So we came by to see what was it about.
Yeah, he mentioned they were a great part of the Ghostwatch garrison, and so we just thought we'd, take a quick look, if that's okay.
They look over to the other male guard, and then just back to you. "Well, I guess if you're here with the Tribune, just, don't try to open the cages or we'll have to arrest you."
Oh no, that's okay. We just kind of want to see the creatures. We're very impressed by what you all have captured.
Never been here before, so just want to see the local fauna.
"Oh, well, this is a saber cat we had caught in the mountains to the south. Right over there, big bear. We have a lot of black bears around here, but this one came from higher up in the mountains. One of the Norn brought it by. But in there, in that center cage there, you got to be really careful with that one. This is one of the branded. Somebody brought it all the way from, fuck me, I forgot the name of the place. Hang on a minute.
As the guard says, he's kicking dirt, trying to think of it.
Waist Guard Watch. One of the last fortresses we have at the edge of the brand. They captured that. It's a branded devourer. And you look in, so you see in these cages there's like a big, muscular feline with, two long, dagger-like teeth on either side of its jaw. There's a enormous, hulking, kind of blackish, almost purple-furred bear. It's like the size of a grizzly bear. It's just this enormous, and it's just kind of curled up, sleeping at the moment. Then in the third cage, you can just see in the darkness, every now and then there's a spark of purple electricity. Sort of snaps and hits the cage, and you hear like a little tss, and the smell of ozone. And just glittering in the darkness are a cluster of little insectile eyes. And as the guard sort of reaches over, grabs a torch from a nearby wall and kind of holds it back under the canopy, you can see just the shadowy outline of this giant scorpion-like creature with two pointed stinger tails and massive claws, just sort of shifting, its physicality altered with jutting purple crystals sort of broken through the skin, and the whole thing just taken on a cast of very like ashy gray paleness to it.
I wonder
That
what
is
kind of
so cool.
weapon that Kala might be able to make out of those two stingers.
Wonder what kind of magic we can learn from this thing.
The guard just says, "Yeah, you don't want to get too close to that one. It killed a couple of the retainers that brought it in."
How did they manage to
Branded her.
capture such a beast?
Well, with a great deal of trouble, I imagine. The branded or something else. I've heard the minions of Primordus are pretty dangerous, but out in these parts, there's very little more dangerous than one of Krokotoric's creations.
You all encounter a lot of branded here?
Not here. We're a couple of days away from the brand, but Wasteguard Watch is one of the last fortresses we have on this side of the brand. They work tirelessly, the Sentinels, to keep the branded at bay.
Sounds like a position of great honor.
Some people see it that way, yes. Others view it as a mild form of insanity. It's mostly volunteers, that force.
That makes sense.
Usually people who have lost loved ones to the brand.
Sorry to hear that. Alexa, did you want to see anything else? Or...
No, I guess. I mean, I do really want to fight that scorpion thing, just because now I've got a thirst for the magic items. But
Well, you know our group. After we deal with this, I'm sure they'll want to blow off some steam.
yeah, another early morning combat. That's such a great idea last time.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, bring a sword's pretty good, cool, probably. I don't know, we haven't seen it yet, but I imagine.
I'm sure it'll be here when we get back.
Yeah, probably. He did say 4 weeks, though. For the sword.
Oh, the sword.
Yes.
Yes. No, I meant the branded. We'll
Oh, yeah, no.
be able to come back and get this scorpion thing.
We'll be back in like 3-4 hours, probably. I mean, when has that ever not gone to plan? Time-wise.
Well, yeah, especially now that we're gonna bring in explosives. Hopefully, this won't end in a cave-in.
That is true. Oh, hey, excuse me, you guards, do you have any experience whatsoever with the Ashford Abbey? Do you know anything about dealing with the ghosts there?
Sort of look at each other in mild confusion, and the girl just turns back to you and says, "Same way you deal with any of the ghosts, really. They hit them until they disperse and move on to the next one."
Well put.
It helps to have one of the Legion ghost bore muskets with you. Normal weaponry doesn't really do much to a ghost. Hitting it with a sword just kind of makes him angry sometimes.
That makes sense. Is there a place we could buy a Ghostborn musket, or an armory where we might be able to acquire one?
Well, the Canton Factorium in the Citadel, where they
Oh, that's
manufacture
unfortunate.
the arms and armor for the legions. Yeah.
Good to know for future. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Oh yeah, I'm Galatar. That's Alexa. We're here with Trollskull. So you've probably never heard of us. But we'll be sure to tell Rytlock that you all were of great help to us. Very, very helpful.
Thank you. And at this point, the rest of you, following Rytlock, you arrive in kind of a tall pavilion-style tent, and there's just a host of injured and wounded charr laying in various states of treatment. There are a handful, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 of them lying on beds near the door, each of them arrayed in thick, like very dark black or brown leather armor, with just barely visible on the chest flap the sigil of the Ash Legion. And as Rytlock enters the tent, he sort of lumbers in, just shoving aside the canvas. You hear, "Oh, Tribune!" And one of them struggles to sit up, and one of the medics kind of comes over and says, "Sit down! Get out of my way, damn it!" And they sit up, and they're grabbing the side of their ribs. And they say, "Vesta Scorchpath, Legionnaire of the Ash Legion Operations Group 98, Scorch Warband, reporting for debriefing, sir." Rytlock walks over quickly and kind of like gets right up in her face. "Proceed, Legionnaire." "Tribune, my warband was doing recon at the old abbey. The ghosts are even more volatile than usual, and now we know why. Flame Legion, sir." "What? Here?" "Yes, sir. We spotted a warband sneaking out of the catacombs. We followed them, intending to eavesdrop." "I take it that didn't go well." "On the contrary, sir. We managed to learn that their leader, the young flame shaman, apparently out of favor, trying to earn his way back into their Imperator's good graces. And we don't know why, or how exactly. We followed them to one of the searing crystals nearby. They were gathering some broken shards and started to double back. Unfortunately, as we got near the abbey again, the ghosts swarmed us, giving away our position. Once the flame realized we were there, they attacked us." "The ghost didn't attack them?" "No, sir. I can't explain it. Must have some kind of protective magic or something. We gave them hell, but there were too many, sir. We were already in a bad spot, but then one of the ghosts tagged Selena, knocked her out cold. The nearest flame grabbed her, and then they rabbited, disappearing into the catacombs. I made the call to pull out before we were totally overwhelmed, and I'll stand by that decision. But we have to go back, sir. She's my responsibility." See Rytlock kind of sit back on his haunches a little bit, cross his arms. "Well, you can't provide intel if you're dead, so it seems to me you made the right call. Your soldier knew the risks, but we'll get her back, Legionnaire." And he turns and he gestures a wide claw to you guys. "This is a group of outside contractors from Lion's Arch. They'll be handling whatever's going on inside the catacombs. And as of right now," and he looks at all of you, "that includes bringing an Ash Legion scout back to camp, in whatever shape you find her." He turns back to the Legionnaire. "They may not look like it, but they're effective. And lucky." You see, for the first time, this female charr kind of sitting half upright, gripping her side, looks to all of you, nods. "Good. You'll need every bit of luck you can get." She starts breathing kind of raggedly, like this has taken a lot of effort to do this. Rytlock just says, "At ease, Legionnaire. So, do you lot have any follow-up questions?" And at this point, we can say, Alexa and Galatar, you guys kind of start to approach this tent, and you can hear conversation going inside.
I'll stay outside the tent.
What was the Legionnaire's name?
Vesta, Scorch
Vesta.
Path.
Scorch Path.
We've heard that the catacombs are trapped heavily. Do you know of any traps that we should avoid, or any types of traps that are particularly common in the catacombs?
I myself, no. My warband was not tasked with entering the catacombs, and few charr ever do.
Did you see the flame legion people go into the catacombs?
Yes. They dragged Selena away, closed the doors behind them.
And how many of these Flame Legion did you see? Do you have an idea of their number?
We saw at least 5 when they came out.
5. That includes the young shaman you saw?
We didn't see the shaman.
Oh, okay. You just heard them talking about him.
Hmm.
I see. Thank you.
She kind of looks around expectantly at the others. Nobody has any questions. Rytlock just looks at her and says, "You've done enough for one night. Leave this to us." And he turns around and starts out of the tent.
Would I have heard of this warband or know anything about them?
Make an intelligence check. With advantage because of your background.
Okay. Straight intelligence check.
Or history.
It's the same roll.
Yeah.
Not proficient.
12. You've, in your brief moment, or brief time crossing charr territory, you spend a lot of your time in the Shiver Peaks among the Norn and out in the wild. But you've heard people mention the Scorch Warband before. They're also known as Kala's Killers. Sort of a nickname that the charr have given. It's unique in that it is an all-female warband. I would say, as you guys are still occupying this tent, Vesta locks eyes with you, Kala. And just says, "You fight with the mice?"
Yeah.
Gives you a
I
skeptical look.
I live in Lion's Arch.
They your warband?
Yeah, closest thing I've ever had to it.
You don't look like ash. Or blood. Are you iron?
I'm originally from well east of the brand.
She gives you a confused look. East of the brand is ogre territory. All the way to Ebonhawk, south of the wall.
Yeah, it was a little village called Coalhearth.
North of the wall. You're one of them. A flame.
Well, I was before.
I'll pull back my coat because I have the tail tips like hidden by my coat, and I'll show her those.
She looks and sees those, and she looks at you, and there's just a brief moment of like, huh, and then oh, like this expression in her eyes that kind of go wide. She starts to laugh a little bit, and then kind of coughs. There's like a little bit of blood. I see.
Yeah, I got away about 5 years ago.
She kind of looks down for a minute, just at the floor, And she says very quietly, "We rescued Selena from a flame camp almost 3 years ago. She's still a little feral, but she's invaluable as a guide. Just watch yourself around her. She's been through things, unspeakable things, but I'm sure you know."
Yeah, we'll bring her back.
She looks at you for a moment, just like holds your gaze. And you can see now, like, a couple of the other members of this scout are awake, and they're sort of half sitting up, all of them kind of quietly regarding you. And you can see all of them kind of nodding, slowly and quietly. And Vesta just says, "Well, good hunting."
Thanks.
She, with a grunt, kind of lays back down.
Ryan, I'm sorry, I kind of missed it. What did she say that they grabbed from the scorching crystal and then they went back to the, like they followed the Flame Legion to a crystal and then went back to the...
Yeah, and Birdie knows about these because he's seen a couple up close. There are large crystal chunks kind of embedded in the ground throughout Ascalon. Part of the magic of the searing that devastated this region was basically like a meteor storm of these enchanted crystals that blasted into the ground and set fire to everything. Vesta described some of the Flame Legion soldiers emerging from the catacombs and trekking out to one of these that still lies nearby. And you'd know, like, these are the size of, like, school buses, sort of embedded in the ground. And that they had collected some of the fragments, because when they hit, a lot of them cracked or shattered. And they were just gathering up some fragments and bringing them back to the catacombs.
Okay.
As you all exit the tent, Rytlock is standing out, and you can see he started to talk to the Centurion in charge of this area once again. And as the Centurion makes his way off and starts to shout and bark orders, Rytlock turns to you all and says, "All right. The ruins of the Abbey are 2 leagues north of here. They aren't very big, and the entrance to the catacombs is at the center. Its archway is the only noticeable structure still intact. You can't miss it. My unit will head out now. We'll skirt eastward along the Ashford River another 2 miles further north, and disturb the ghosts to give you an opening. Give us an hour's head start and make your way to the catacombs. Get in. Stop whatever the hell's going on there, and then get back here on the double. Got it?"
Yes.
Aye, Captain.
He turns around and starts to stalk away, and you see him. He reaches down. On his belt is a sword hilt that is fashioned to look like the open, sort of yawning mouth of a golden dragon's head. And issuing from the mouth, rather than a single blade, are 2 blades that kind of come out and form a helix, or a double helix together. Thin, not rounded, but together they are sort of single blade. And as he draws it from the scabbard, it bursts into brilliant flame. And he holds it up, and as all the charr nearby turn to see it, he shouts, "Move out!" And they all start walking, the creak of the wheels and the grinding of the gears as the siege engines begin to move once more.
Ryan, would I know at the mention of these like crystals being collected and taken back into the catacombs to the shaman allegedly there, like, are these crystals usable for like magic, or like what type of magic art can they be used for, kind of deal? Like, would I know any of that, given like my background? Or like,
are you proficient in Arcana?
well, I'm a little proficient in everything.
Make an Arcana check. 19.
18. Hell
I mean,
yeah.
you've seen one, and like when you see them, you can tell that they just radiate magic. It's not as potent as it was, 300 years ago when it fell from the sky, but there is definitely a magical nature to them. In your vast experience, you have never heard of people using them for a specific purpose. You know that every now and then you'll get a tale of like a dashing smuggler or an adventurer who tries to go out and grab some and take them back for study, or because he's being paid by a mage or a collector of some sort who is wanting to view them as a curiosity or to find out for themselves what they might be used for. But as far as a practical purpose, no, you're not aware of any.
Okay.
When I know of any theories around crystalline magic, just as a general practice, I doubt I would know about the specifics of like these particular crystals, but is there any
Make an
sort of
Arcana check.
common research in that? 24? 22.
22. You know that magical crystals are useful in a variety of situations, both as a focus or a channel for arcane energy, or sometimes, depending on the nature of them, they could be used as an amplifier or a storage for arcane energy. It just sort of depends on the nature of the crystal itself and also how you process it and use it and things like that.
Okay.
Okay. So, Rytlock and his unit head out, and eventually the sounds of their travel fade into the distance. You guys have about an hour of time to kill here. Is there anything you would like to do before heading out?
Guys, there's this thing in the pit.
I don't know if it's wise
Super.
to pick a fight before we go.
Yeah.
We shouldn't do
into
it right now, but when we get back, there is a branded in the pit
Yeah,
that
no,
looks
like I'm bringing
pretty
it up,
interesting.
but not as a worship fighter right now.
Yeah, like when we get back, maybe just take a look at it. We don't even need to fight it. I just think you all should see it.
I've seen branded.
Have you seen this branded scorpion with the two stingers on it before?
Yeah, the giant insectoid with all the eyes. Ooh.
Have I seen one of those?
Yes, you have seen a branded devourer. You know what devourers are
Yeah.
and how the charr use them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You also
I know
how
what
did the
those
charr
are.
use them?
Freakishly big.
How are they used?
We eat them. We train them to fight with us. If they get big enough, we make them siege devourers.
A siege? Like they pull these engine things? Or you just
So,
ride them?
like the tails are like catapults.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
Interesting.
Mm.
You all are very creative people.
That's way more useful than a Doliac.
Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And when it dies, you can still eat it. So.
No waste.
Tactical to the end. I love it. That's genius. Okay. Well, great.
Okay. So if there's nothing practical you want to accomplish while you're here, we can fast forward an hour until it's time to move out. And this would be a good time for a bio break. So everybody take 5 and we'll be back.
All right.
Stop the recording.